Poland is having its own Stonewall moment. It's really exciting to see, as this is a very Catholic country. A lot has been happening with LGBT activists this summer, but I want to focus on one story about Margot, LGBT activist who also goes by Margot, who was released on the 28th of August after being jailed for 21 days in solitary confinement. So, what did she do to deserve that? Well, Margot is a founding member of Stop Bzdurom, which means Stop Bullshit, a group formed to protest against, well, the hateful homophobic bullshit in Poland. From archbishops who talk about rainbow plagues being worse than communism, to cities declaring themselves LGBT-free zones, Poland isn't that great a place if you're queer. One of the targets for protests by Stop Bzdurom is the group Pro Right to Life and their Stop Pedophilia campaign, and in particular, their homophobic trucks. I've talked about the campaign Stop Pedophilia on this channel before when I talked about Poland's president insisting he doesn't dislike queer people, just queer ideology. This group, Pro Right to Life, likes to drive around cities in trucks with speakers on the roofs, blaring hateful misinformation that homosexuality leads to pedophilia. Let me stress that these speakers are loud enough to be heard from inside a building when the car is outside. When I say homophobic truck, this is what I mean. On the 27th of June 2020, the truck was defaced by protesters who ripped off posters, broke some mirrors, took off license plates, slashed the tires, and got into a fight with the driver. Personally, I think this is a completely legitimate reaction, and I'll explain why I'm okay with it at the end of the video. On the 14th of July, Margot was arrested for taking part in this, and was held overnight and released. Stop Bzdurom began a campaign to put rainbow flags on statues, including the Monument of Christ in Warsaw. It was a response, in part, to the EU's announcement that it was blocking funds to the 6 Polish towns that declare themselves LGBT-free zones. On the 3rd of August, she was arrested, along with others, and charged with insulting religious feelings and insulting Warsaw monuments. Because that's a crime. Putting rainbow flags on statues is a crime. Welcome to Poland. 4 days later, a court ordered Margot to be placed in a pre-trial detention for 2 months. That isn't usual for Poland at all. People usually aren't jailed for months on end before a trial. Although she agreed to go with police on the 7th of August, they didn't arrest her then. So she and other protesters went to Krakowskie Przedmieście, a central street in Warsaw, where the rainbow-covered Monument of Christ was. Soon, several hundred protesters had gathered. This is when things escalated. A police officer allegedly detained Margot using excessive force, as well as other protesters. Altogether, 48 people were detained by Warsaw police, and they were treated terribly while in police custody. They didn't have access to food, water, or legal aid, and had visible injuries from the police, a report by the Polish commissioner found. Margot was held from the 7th of August until her release on the 28th of August. She'd been held in solitary confinement, likely out of fear she would be injured. Margot is both trans and non-binary. Her story detailed in Polish Vogue, and trust me, it's worth running through Google Translate, although it's very difficult to read what she went through. So now I want to explain why I'm okay with the method Stop Bzdurom is using. I think it's the right amount of force for what's happening in Poland. On the homophobic trucks, I've had my class interrupted by these trucks, and I've seen the looks on my students' faces when they hear the garbage spewed from the speakers. Even if you want to holler about free speech, and then with the piles of academic research that show that homosexuality does not cause pedophilia, I still want to know why these trucks can blast anything at such a loud volume. Does Poland not have any freaking noise ordinances? I mean, I know why. It's Poland, and hate is okay when hate pretends to be religious belief. It says a lot about Poland's priorities. Police protect these homophobic trucks from harm, while LGBT people are not protected by hate speech laws in Poland. The thing is, the argument that hate speech doesn't lead to violence doesn't hold up. In addition to the Pride March that ended in violence in Białystok in summer 2019, there was also a bomb a couple brought to a Pride March in Lublin the same year. I'm sick and tired of hearing right-wingers insist that they'd be fine with queer people if only the parades weren't so loud and so explicit. Yeah, right. You don't go from being offended by something to taking a bomb to a parade, or spray painting destroy LGBT on buildings, which is what happened to my building last year. Any argument that these activists are pushing too hard is missing the point. The Polish government, spurred by the right-wing conservative ruling party, PIS, has allowed hate speech to flourish and spread, and that's dangerous for queer folks. If you want proof about how hateful the Polish right can be, go take a look at the comments on my video about the Polish president, Andrzej Duda. It's full of people furious at me for wearing a shirt with a rainbow Polish eagle, furious that a foreigner is talking about an issue in Poland, and just angry with queer people in general. Because it's digging into a fight about what it means to be Polish and how much power the Catholic Church has over the government. Under communism, the Catholic Church became a rallying point for Poles who wanted to push back against the Soviet regime. With Pope John Paul II, a Polish bishop, the Church's position as anti-Soviet was cemented. However, the Church has used this to build political power in Poland, and the Church in Poland is uncomfortably close with the government. However, the Church has used this to build political power, and the Church is uncomfortably close with the government, as the Church's influence law in Poland. And we all know that the Catholic Church has no love for the LGBT community. Finally, the insistence that to be Polish means you must be Catholic ignores a long history of Jewish Poles, particularly in Krakow. Two stray things I want to mention before I end this video. Tomasz Lis, the editor-in-chief of Polish Newsweek, described Margot this way. Yeah, maybe Newsweek should pay more attention to what its subsidiaries are doing? And to end on a high note, I think this is magical. So I mentioned those homophobic trucks before. For non-Polish speakers, the truck behind it reads, roughly, "I'm a truck that reads nonsense on the internet and now drives around town screaming." Pure poetry via Polish YouTuber Krzysztof Gonciarz. If you made it to the end, thanks for watching. Leave me a comment, like, or share this video.